What up, YouTube? It's your favorite Honda hippie here. It's Saturday, so I let my hair down. But today we're going to talk about the 2021 Honda Ridgeline. So we're going to compare it to the 2020 versus 21, and then how does this 21 Ridgeline compete to the other vehicles out there in the market, such as the Tacoma, the Ranger, and anything else like a Frontier that I can find. So let's hop on in. So let's talk about what's underneath the hood of this 2021 Honda Ridgeline. So this offers a 3.5-liter V6 engine. So if you're looking for a vehicle that offers two different engine types, this is not going to be the vehicle for you. This is strictly the V6. Now, this same V6 that lives in this car is this same V6 that you would find in the Ridgeline, you'll find in the Pilot, you'll find in the Passport, and even the Honda Odyssey. So just be aware that this is a tried and true tested engine as far as that goes. Now, as far as what you can see around here, you can see I got a fuse box right over here, and then I've got my brake distribution down here in the corner. As I come across, I've got the engine cover on here, so not a lot to see there. I've got my air box sitting right here. Of course, I've got air intake coming here, and then my CPU is actually sitting right back over here. So it's a nice, clean aesthetic as far as that goes. Now, if I scroll down some, you can see that I've got my dipstick located right here. And this way you can kind of get an idea for what's around you. And then as far as getting your engine, as far as oil, you're right there additionally too. Now, the one thing I don't like about this, like a lot of the newer Hondas that I'm seeing, is that they're hiding the battery box back here. So you have to take this piece off, which is just on a grommet, but you got to take this off to get to this. So if you need to jumpstart this car, or you're trying to help jumpstart a friend, this is going to play a role. So just be aware of that. So while we're up here at the front of the vehicle, I want to talk about horsepower. So the 3.5-liter V6 that's in this vehicle is putting out 280 horsepower. So I want to show you a comparison of some other vehicles out there in the market. So I'm going to throw that up on the screen so you get an understanding for where this competes as far as horsepower comparison. So the Honda Ridgeline gets 18 miles in the city and 24 miles on the highway, which is interesting because in this engine, if you see it in other different vehicles, so whether it be the Pilot or the Odyssey, you actually see a little bit better gas mileages. So if you got it tuned a little bit, I think, for additional power performance in the low end, but you're giving up some of that, the miles per gallon. So while we're talking about that, I want to throw a comparison up so you can compare this vehicle to some of the other vehicles out there in the market as far as miles per gallon. So check that out on the screen, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Now, this is the Sport model. So this is your entry-level model, but they have added the Honda Performance Development Package on it. And I'll point out what those things are as we move around the vehicle, but I just want to let you know as we work our way around. So the first thing I'm going to point out is obviously this 18-inch wheel, which is part of that Honda Performance Development Package. So it's got that nice gold look to it. It almost looks like it's set up, to let air in and out as far as if you were taking this car off-roading. Now, you do additionally have those fender flares too. So both of these items are part of that Honda HPD package, as I'm just going to call it. Now, up at the front, it does have an upgraded grille, so you are going to see a little bit different look up here. But while we're up here, I'll just point out that you do, of course, have fog lights, and then you've got your LED daytime running lights, your halogen beams, and everything else as far as your lighting setup. Now, this car does offer Honda sensing. So I'll point out a couple things here. The first being, you can see this trapezoid cut out of the windshield right there, and that's where the camera lives. And then down in the grill over here, you're gonna have a radar system, right? So these two are gonna allow it to detect cars in front of it. So for collision mitigation braking, you get an alert in the car if it's looking like you're gonna rear into somebody. It'll alert you, flash in the dash, and actually start to apply the brakes to prevent the accident. So that's gonna be part of this system. You've got road departure mitigation, meaning if I drive off the shoulder of the road, it'll give me an audible alert and shake the wheel. And then you've got lane keep assist. A lane keep assist will keep you centered in your lane. So it uses that camera up there to detect the white lines on the road. So as you're driving, if you start to drift to the left or the right, it'll actually help keep you centered. So it'll do some corrective driving for you. So you've got a lot of cool features that land in a base model vehicle, which is nice that they're doing now, that you wouldn't have not necessarily seen that if you were looking 1 and 2 and 3 years past. So let's move around the side of the car and talk a little bit more. So on the sides of the car, this is obviously a pearlized white, but you can see that you've got black as far as your breakaway mirrors go right here. So just to point that out, it is a smart key entry system, so I can put my hand on the door and unlock it and lock it off the button right here. So nice to know that you have that. The back half of the car is tinted from the manufacturer, just not the front two windows. So if you're looking for that, that's going to be something you get either done aftermarket, or you can usually get the dealership to do it for you. Now, something interesting they've done is this actually a unibody design, meaning they've created this crease and this look to kind of look like what a typical truck would be, but there's nothing there. So just kind of an interesting thing that they've done to give it more of a truck feel now, right? So as you move around the back of the car, the back of the truck, don't let me upset anyone here. I'm gonna point out a lot of really cool and unique features. One being that this has obviously been branded here. So it's part of that $2,800 package, the HPD. So you're getting the stickers, you're getting the wheels, the fender flares, the grille up front, and then the badging on the back of the car. All right, guys, so the back end of this truck is probably arguably what would commit you to buy this vehicle over some of the other ones out in the market. And that's a really weird thing to say, right? But it offers so many unique things. So let's talk about that. The first thing being is the back, right? You look at it and you go, I don't know, it looks like a classic back end. I've got a hitch, I've got dual exhaust. You know, what else can I need? I got a flip down tailgate. Now, what's cool about the tailgate is, of course, you have the classic flip down, right? So I can throw the tailgate down. But what's really cool about this, and I do not know why other trucks don't offer this, if you come down here, there is a part that you can grab right there. This is a dual action tailgate. Why are more trunk companies not doing this? I have no idea, but Honda is, and it's dope. So let's move into the interior of the truck. The first thing I want to point out is that one, it's lined already. That's just part of buying this truck. So you're not paying extra to have it lined. And two, you're not paying for tie downs. So these tie downs are already in the vehicle. So once again, you're not paying additionally for those too. Now you have additional storage back here that you can flip down. If you were in, I believe, the RTL-E model, you would have a 115 power outlet in there. So kind of cool, and it runs while the car's on. So if you needed to charge batteries on the way to another site or whatever you were doing, you could obviously do it. Now, I don't argue that this vehicle is probably going to use as a work truck that much, but it does offer a lot of the capabilities. And I would say 90% of the things that a guy wants to do with a truck or a girl wants to do with a truck, this vehicle will do. Now, back here, you'll notice that there's a locking system right here. Now, this is one of the coolest things about this car. It has built-in storage to the vehicle. So as you can see, as I come in here, one, my spare actually lives in here, so I don't have to drop it down from the bottom, climb underneath the car to try to get a spare on if I get a flat, which is a bummer if you've ever had to do it. Now, I've got the floor mats in here, so I'm gonna get those out of the way and talk a little bit more about this. Now, down in here, you'll notice there's this tub. Now, what's really cool about this tub is that one, I can store stuff here. So if I don't have to worry about using a lockbox system up here to where I'm giving up some of my space, right? So I have one, lockable storage that is now right here and available to me. And then two, check this out. It's lined and it has a hole. So if you wanted to like go tailgating, go fishing, go out to the lake, you wanted to fill this up with ice and drinks, you absolutely could. And then on the way home, all you have to do, pull the plug out, let it drain as you go, and you are good to go. Show me another truck that offers this. I dare you. I don't know why, but apparently Honda must own the rights to this. This arguably is some of the coolest stuff that this truck does that no other truck on the market does. Now, if you wanted to take it one step further, if you climb all the way up to, I believe, the RTL-E, it has a in-bed stereo system. So if I get my hands on RTL-E, I will absolutely show you what's available. Now that is 2 trims up. All right, guys, so while we're at the back of this car, I want to talk about the trim levels that live above it, right? So immediately above this is the RTL, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up on the screen, one, so you can see a list of the items that you get by jumping up to that model. And then two, I want you to see what the price increase is. So you can understand, hey, if I want to get all those extra items, how much is it going to cost me out of my pocket? Now, moving past the RTL-E, since we're on this truck, I want to show you what comes in that vehicle too, because it offers a lot of items. So next, I'm going to show you what the RTL-E, which is 2 models up, offers, and then I'll show you the price increase there. Now, above that is going to be the Black Edition, which is known for a performance-based look, and it's all blacked out typically. So I'm not the hugest fan, but I understand that they maybe made a couple changes to it this year. So I'll quickly throw up what's on the screen as far as what you gain moving all the way to the top end. But my guess is if you're looking at the Sport model, you're probably not considering the very top end. But now you have a good understanding of, hey, if I want to spend a little bit more money, what can I get if I'm climbing up a model, or if I decide to climb up 2 models? All right, guys, so before we leave the back end of this vehicle, we should probably talk about the space in it, right? So I'm gonna throw up some dimensions as far as the spacing that you have in the back, and I'll remind you that absolutely, could you throw a piece of drywall back here? Yes, it will fit. I've done a couple different tutorials on this vehicle to learn it over the years. But I want you to understand basically, hey, if I need to throw something in the back, what are my dimensions so that I know if I can actually achieve it with this specific truck? Now, with that said, I'll see if I can find some cargo dimension spacing comparisons so that we can compare this truck to obviously what else is out there in the market. What's up, guys? So here I am in the second row, and as you can see, if I'm sitting behind myself, it is a little bit tight, but it's not too bad. Now, if I was taking a 17-hour road trip, would I want to do it? I don't know necessarily. Maybe I want to sit behind the passenger if they're a little bit shorter. But come on in the truck and let's talk about it. So in the interior of this truck, you will see that it is a fabric interior, and they've got kind of a two-tone look here going. So you've got your classic black, and then you've got a pattern stitch going here, and then you have the offset white stitching additionally too. So they've got a nice sporty look to it, I guess, since it is a sport. Now, pulling this down, of course, I've got cup holders and I've got some additional space to lay my hands. Now, one of the coolest things though that they do in this truck is that they give you the ability to store things underneath the seats and flip them up. So let's take a look at that. So as you come into the back, you'll notice that there's these handles right here and you can pull them. All you gotta do is pull and lift, and that'll actually throw the seat up. So from there, you can see that it's just a small rail system that they have right here as far as what they're using to lock into place. So when it comes to that, you don't have this massive amount of space that's taken up, it's kind of negative space. You can actually use this as good storage. So if I flip both these up, I could easily throw a bicycle in here and either turn the front wheel, or if I got a quick release, I could pop the wheel off and be able to store it in the back. Or obviously I have my storage in the back of the car that I could use, but depending, maybe I want to throw a bike in here additionally too. All right, guys, so before we leave this second row, I want to talk about leg space. So I want to throw a leg space comparison up so that you can understand how this competes against the other trucks out there in the market. So I'm going to throw that up on the screen so that you can get an understanding for, hey, where does this truck live when it comes to, if I'm putting passengers in that back seat, I want to know how comfortable they'll be. So take a look at that and we'll move on up to the front row. All right, guys, so before we enter the front row, I want to talk to you a little bit about it. Earlier I mentioned that it does have smart key entry, meaning that I don't necessarily have to have this on me and use the lock and unlock. I can just walk up and touch it. But I also want to point out that the car does have remote start. So if I press the lock button on it to make sure the doors are locked, I can press and hold the remote start button for a couple seconds and it'll actually fire up the car and run it for 10 minutes. Now, if I want to extend that, press that same sequence again and it'll run it for 20 minutes. Now, if I want to turn the car off for this sake, I'm just going to press the unlock button and press the remote start button, and this way I can turn the vehicle off. Now that we've got the car turning off here, let's go ahead and talk about the smart key entry. If you're not familiar, it just means that I can walk up, touch my hand on the door handle, it'll unlock, or I can lock the doors and walk away. So it's just kind of a cool feature that I have the ability to do so that I can open and get in and out of the car easily. Now, this is a base model, so I will point out that you have manual seat adjustments over here. So if you are looking for those automatic seats, or powered seats, I should say, you're gonna need to climb up models, so just be aware of that. The same with that, as we move up, I'll point out that this is, of course, a cloth interior like the back seat. So if you were looking for that leather interior, you're gonna wanna climb up to that EXL model. All right, guys, so let's talk a little bit more about the dash layout that you find in this car. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come across here and start you over at this far corner over here. So let's talk about what you see over here. So the first thing you're gonna see is road departure mitigation. So you can tell it's on the LED right here. So this is what I mentioned earlier, that the vehicle will actually, if you start to drive off the shoulder of the road, it'll give you an audible alert and start to shake the wheel to say, hey, wake up, pay attention, perhaps you're getting drowsy. Now, all of these I'm gonna mention you can turn on and off, so just be aware of that. If you're concerned about that, you absolutely can turn them off. Now, to the right of that, I should say, is collision mitigation braking. So this is what I was mentioning earlier, to where if it's looking like I'm gonna rear in another car, first it'll give me an audible alert, then it'll flash on the dash, and it'll actually start to apply the brakes to help prevent the accident. And it's using that radar up in the front to bounce off the cars to detect them in front of you. Now, the other features like the road departure and lane keep assist, which I'll mention in a second, is using that camera that I pointed out up here. Now, as we come back down into here, I do want to point out that you have vehicle stability assist. So this works with your traction control. So in the event that you go into a skid, it's going to transfer power to whichever wheel is getting better traction in the car. Now, something I will point out that is new in 2021 is that these are all-wheel drive. So they don't offer the two-wheel drive and all-wheel drive anymore. So it does mean that you have the torque management system. So be aware that you have a torque management system in this vehicle, which is cool. It just means it uses torque vectoring when you're turning and doing different things to help you out as far as steering goes. So something to keep in mind as far as, hey, what is different from the 2020 to 2021? Now, if you want to throw your cargo lights on the back on, this is what you would do right here, so easy enough to access. Now, above that, this green button right here is the econ button. If I press this button, you're gonna see a green leaf pop on up in here, and then it'll actually alert you when I do it. It'll say, hey, econ on or econ off in the dash. Now, what this does is it improves gas mileage of the car, but in doing so, you're kind of giving up a couple things. So it's gonna improve the gas mileage, but you're gonna give up some of that power off the accelerator, and then your AC unit is gonna blow quite as hard. So it's gonna dampen those features and improve gas mileage. So this is a feature that you can turn on and off on the go anytime that you want. So maybe you wanna use it all the time because you're a conservative driver and you don't even notice the difference, or maybe you're a little bit more pedal to the metal and you just want to turn it on when you're on the highway if you're taking a longer road trip, right? Easy enough to understand. So that's what's going on with that. Now, as we move across next to it, you're gonna see your mirror controls, right? So easy enough to understand. I've got the toggle to go left and right, and then I've got the pad to adjust the mirrors right there. So pretty classic and easy to understand. Let's talk about the steering wheel. So the first thing I want to point out is your audio control. So I can press the plus and the minus to change volume. And then of course I have my source button, which switch between, you know, FM, AM, Bluetooth, USB, you know, anything that I'm using inside of the vehicle as far as an audio option. Now, above that, I've got a menu screen jump here, and this will quickly jump between Bluetooth and audio. So as I press it, it'll toggle between those two. So that's what this is kind of a quick jump for the driver. Now, additionally, I have a menu screen here. So depending on what I have pulled up, if it's audio, it'll pull up my different options as far as scanning and seeking and doing different things. So it just kind of depends on what audio you have running on whether you want to use this. So it's essentially just pulling up a menu screen. Now, below that is going to be your Bluetooth control. So to answer a call, to hang up a call, and then to use voice command in the vehicle. So easy enough to understand as far as what it offers. Now, this car does offer Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is super sweet that they're doing that in a base model. You used to not find that in the base model, and you definitely wouldn't find this screen, which I'll get to here in a second, in the base model truck. Now, so this button, not only can you answer calls, but if I press and hold until I hear the beep for Siri or for Google, I can ask them to do things. So Google, you know, send a text to this person, pull up navigation on this. Same thing with Siri, right? So a really cool feature, or dual feature, I should say, right here. Now, moving over to the right side of the steering wheel. So this is where some additional Honda sensing features are gonna be, right? So if I press this main button right here, you're gonna see LKS and ACC pop up in there. So hopefully you can see those flashing kind of right down there. And that stands for Lane Keep Assist and Adaptive Cruise Control. So let's talk about Adaptive Cruise Control first. So it's kind of like classic cruise control, but it has some parameters that you can use, right? So I get up to my speed and I press set. From there, it'll now hold the speed. But what you can do additionally using adaptive cruise control is it means I can set the distance it keeps between me and cars in front of me. So if I set this to 65 and then we're going down the road up here, right? And I see a car and he slows down. If I have the spacing set on this, which when I press this, you can see some boxes kind of appearing up there. The more boxes, the more space it's gonna keep, right? So what that means is if I'm going down the road and a car slows down, it'll slow down and keep that generated spacing. And then once I get around them, it'll actually speed back up to the speed that I've determined, right? So really cool. Now, if you want classic cruise control, no big deal, guys. Press and hold. It'll flip over once you hear the beep, and then press it again and you flip back, right? So easy enough to flip between the two. So that is both of those features that you see right there. Now, below that, you're gonna have a couple menu buttons here. So this is where you can jump into some of these menus that you'll see up here, as far as accessing things like your tire pressure monitoring system, and it does actually alert you to each wheel, which I do like. You know, being able to see, you know, your fuel consumption, different things like that, and just toggling through, you know, oil life, you know, the kind of the normal expectation things that you would see there in a small digital screen. And then I will point out that, of course, this is analog over here, but I do like that they give you a digital speedometer, just because it is nice to actually know exactly what speed you're going, because nothing worse than having a cop hop behind you and you're like, was I going 65, 64? You can fill in the blank. Now, on this car, it is a sport model, which pretty much every sport, whether it's an Accord, a Civic, whatever it is, comes with paddle shifters. So you have the ability to upshift and downshift this car, which it is a 9-speed transmission in the vehicle. So positive meaning upshift, and the negative meaning downshift the car. So it just gives you a little bit more control over the performance of the vehicle. Now over here you have your lighting controls, so turning your lights on and off, which you can set to auto, and then you have your fog light controls right there. And then on the other side, you have your windshield wipers, so just pull down to set them, right? Easy enough to understand this stuff. All right, guys, so let's talk about the touchscreen inside of this vehicle. So as you can see, it's got a nice, easy, and simple layout here to understand as far as what you have to offer. So the first thing would be, obviously, you have access to Bluetooth, so if you want to make calls, do things of that nature, you absolutely could. Now, if you've never connected up a phone to this car, the first time you plug in your phone, it'll automatically prompt you, or you can always go over to the settings, right? So if you press that Bluetooth symbol and you haven't connected one, it'll prompt you to add a phone. Now, if you want to do additional ones, you can absolutely do it from right here. All you got to do is go to Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and then, you know, of course, go to Bluetooth device list and say, hey, I want to add something to this list. So very easy to add, you know, your 4th, 5th. I think you can add up to 6 devices in this car. Now, next to that is going to be your info button. So this is very easy to understand as far as if I want tripometer information or if I just want to clock and wallpaper. So I'm going to go to clock and wallpaper for just a second. So if you just want a plain screen up here while you're driving around, you don't have to have a lot going on here. So just nice to know that you have that. Now, audio-wise, let's talk about all your different options that you have on this car. So I'm going to touch the source button up here. Now on this, you're going to see FM, AM, USB. So I could store a bunch of music to a USB drive for this vehicle, plug it in, and then be able to listen to all that music off of it. So it's really cool that they do that. Anything with an IO obviously connect up. I have Android Auto connected up here, which I'm going to walk you through here in just a second. And then you've got Bluetooth and you've got an auxiliary in, which that auxiliary in is going to live inside of your glove box down here. So you got a plug here and then a power outlet here. And then you've got another power outlet down here and then a USB right here. So just so you know where these items are. So let's kind of come back up here and we'll talk more about this. All right, so Honda Link is set up to where if you're basically for this base model, the only thing it's really going to apply to you is when you connect up via Bluetooth. It's going to prompt you and say, hey, in the event that you get in an accident and the airbags deploy, would you like us to have the ability to call 911 if you don't answer when we call? 100% free. Take advantage of it. Why would you not want this safety feature on the car? Now, next to that is going to be Android Auto. So Android Auto does a lot of really cool things. So as far as if you were looking for, let's say, a mapping system, so a GPS system on this car, it gives you the access to use what's on your phone on the screen. So if you're an Android-based user, you would have access to Google Maps and Waze. If you're an Apple user, you would have access to Apple Maps, Google, and Waze. So right, you're getting a little bit more out of the Apple user side of things. But what's really cool is it also translates and carries over a lot of other apps. So I use Spotify, but if you use Pandora, you can pop that on, YouTube Music, a lot of different things here. I can access even my Messenger, right, via Facebook or Instagram. Now, moving down, I have access to Waze, Smart Things, so obviously there's a million different apps. So I want to take a second and just throw 15 of the most popular apps that integrate with Apple CarPlay and Android on the screen so that you can kind of understand, hey, if I want to take advantages, what all can I actually do with this system? Now that we've got that said, I also want to point out while we're talking about the Messenger and of course Facebook that I do have a Facebook page if you ever want to get some content. So I will throw a link up on the bottom there so that you can see what that is in case you want to follow me there. Because I would love to have you and I love your comments and I always love a secondary place that you can share, especially if there's something you want me to talk about. It's always nice to say, hey Justin, will you make a video on this? All right guys, so let's talk about the settings inside of the vehicle. So I'm going to touch the settings button here and we'll jump into that. Now we mentioned Bluetooth earlier as far as if you want to access that. Audio-wise, if you want to jump into like an equalizer, but vehicle has some really cool things in it. So this is where you can control like your door and window setups as far as locks, your lighting setups with some different things. So under door setup is probably going to be the most commonly used ones. So the first being auto door lock. So this is where like if the car hits 10 miles an hour, it'll automatically lock the doors of the car and you can change that to a few different options. And then when you're getting out of the car, when you open the driver's side door, it'll then unlock the remaining doors of the car. So that's what the default settings are for both of these. If you want to go and change those, you absolutely can. Now, the tailgate is a power locking system, which you can enable and disable so that it automatically locks on its own, which is kind of cool to know that one, it locks, because that means two, you can lock your tailgate, and if you had a bed sitting on top of it that was lockable, you could lock everything in that storage area in the back, which is nice to know because not every vehicle offers that. So just be aware that you have that option available to you. So just know that you got a lot of stuff that you can play with under here. Keyless access setup is where you can affect things that are related like smart key entry. My favorite is the walkway auto lock feature. So if I enable this, because the default is not to be enabled, what I just did is now if I get 10 feet from the car and I haven't locked it and I have the keys with me, it'll automatically lock the doors of the car. Now if the keys are in it, it won't lock, right? It'll beep at you when you get out and say beep, 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 beep to let you know the keys are in there. But if you get out, you walk halfway in the grocery store, into Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever you're going, and you go, oh my God, I don't remember if I locked it. Well, if you had this feature on, it would have automatically locked it for you. So walk away auto lock, something you might want to turn on if you're thinking about buying this car. So that's the touchscreen layout to the vehicle. Now down below that, you're just gonna have your AC settings right there, some additional storage, and then you've got a USB, of course, in the power outlet. Over here, this is one thing that they have changed. So now you're gonna notice that it's not a classic shifter anymore. It just means that it's got LEDs and buttons that you press to toggle through this screen. So not anything that's really wild or that, you know, that uncommon to see in a vehicle, especially a Honda. It just happens to give you a little bit more space to work through here. And then you have a traction control system. So this is what I was mentioning earlier, the intelligent traction management system that I was struggling to say. So if I press that, it's gonna give me some different settings that I have available to me up here. So you can see those as I press it, it'll toggle through. So I've got a normal, a snow, a mud, and a sand. So it's just cool that you have these. And it's got a cool little graphic or GIF files, I should say, that pops on there. Now, one of my least favorite features in the car is right below that. The car has idle stop start, meaning that if I come to a stop, I'm sitting at a light, it can turn off the engine but let the rest of the vehicle remain on. You have to turn this and hit this button every time to turn off. So just kind of a bummer. I'm not a huge fan of this feature because I feel like it creates some lag sometimes. So just something to be aware of. This car does come with that feature. And then you saw that I have the storage down in here, you know, in my shelf, and it's rubber lined in the bottom, and it's rubber lined in the bottom here too, which I do like, and you can pull them out, right? So they made it easy that you can do that. So it's just kind of nice that they've set it up, you know, to set you really up for success in case you spill something or anything happens. And it's got a nice finish over this right here. Now, we should talk about something that I didn't mention earlier, and that's leg room up here. So as a 6-footer, I've got a decent amount of space here, and mind you, I've got it pushed all the way back, so just be aware of that. So I will throw a comparison up on the screen. So if I can find one that shows you leg row comparison for, of course, this vehicle and then the other vehicles that this would typically compete against. As far as 2020 to 2021, there's no dimensional changes in this vehicle, so you don't have to worry about that. If you're looking at a 2020, you'd be good to go, but I'm more worried about what it competes out there on the market. Now, before we leave the front up here, I do want to do a couple things. The first being is I didn't mention the backup camera, so we should probably talk about that. So when I throw it in reverse, it'll pop up. Now, this is a really cool backup camera. You have 3 different views. So I've got a wide angle view. So if I'm backing out of a spot, I can see if cars are coming from the left or right. I've got standard backup, and then this is aimed straight down. If you plan on towing, this is an awesome feature because your towing hitch would hang out right there, and I could back right up to something and make sure I'm lined up perfectly. So it no longer becomes a 2-man job of me standing up front going, all right, a little bit this way, now stop, go a little bit that way, and doing all that nonsense. Now I can back it up myself and do it. And what's cool also, and I should point this out, is you have dynamic guidelines, meaning as you cut, it shows that it's either straightened out or that the wheel is cut, right? So just kind of nice to know, especially if you plan to tow something about this. Now, related to towing, I'll throw up your towing capacity on the screen so that you can check it out. Obviously, you've got enough to tow like a boat, a small pop-up camper, but if you're looking to tow like a gooseneck or a fifth wheel, probably not gonna be the vehicle for you. All right, guys, so it's time to talk final conclusions and final thoughts on this truck. Now, arguably, I would tell you this truck does 90% of the things that 90% of the people want in a truck, but it doesn't live in that classic truck category. And that's why people typically overlook it and they miss out on really awesome features that come in this truck. Now, from 2020 to 21, I will tell you a couple things. They have done a little bit different designs in the grille and on the hood. They offer this, the HPD package, which is kind of cool, but it is $2,800 for, let's be honest, wheels and then some badging and stickers. So, leave it or take it. It just depends if you like the wheels, right? But they have tacked on an extra, I believe it's about $3,000 from 2020 to 21 from your trim levels. So if you're looking at like a sport, up to a sport, it's about $3,000, I want to say, jump. So it's considerable jump. So if you're seeing a 2020 out there, it might be worth it to consider it. So just something to keep aware. But if you want the newest, latest, and greatest, obviously the 21 would be a great addition to add. Now, as far as how it competes against those other vehicles out there, I want to talk about horsepower first. So I'm going to throw that comparison back up on the screen so that you can compare this truck to the other, competition vehicles that are out there in the market. Now, after we've looked at the horsepower comparison, then I want to take it to miles per gallon. So we know it has 280 280 horsepower in the hood, and it's got 18 in the city and 24 on the highway as far as your miles per gallon. So let's look at that comparison that's up on the screen so you can understand where this lives out there in the market. Now, after we've done that, I want to talk about cargo space. But before we go to cargo space, I want to remind you that one, it has a dual action flipping tailgate, which is awesome. You've got built-in additional storage underneath, which is locking. Your tailgate is also locking. It comes lined, so you don't have to pay extra to add that on. It comes with the hooks in the back already additionally too. All of these are features that if you are buying from anyone else, these are all going to be upgrades that are going to tack onto your price tag, and you're just going to watch it keep going up and up and up. So this is one of those things where I'm saying, man, if you are not looking at this truck, you are missing out, other than the fact that it doesn't live in that typical truck category of what you think of when you think truck. But does it offer all the features that you need? Probably so, unless, like I mentioned, you're looking to pull something really big. Now, let's talk about the storage space in the back of the vehicle. So we talked about that. You got the plug drainage under there. You do have the spare that lives inside of that, so you're not climbing underneath the truck to get to it. So all of these are awesome features. Now, if you're climbing up to some of those other models, like I mentioned, it has an in-bed audio speaker. You won't find that speaker system in this particular trim, but know that it's out there in case that's something that you heard and went, wait, tell me more about that. That's on that RTL. While we're talking about RTL-E, RTL-E, let me get that last letter out. I want to talk to you about, hey, if I want to jump up trim levels, what am I getting up by going one model up? So first, I want to show you a list of those items that you're getting by going up to the RTL. And then, of course, I want to show you what the price tag difference is. So, hey, if you're jumping up, how much additional money am I spending to go up to that RTL, right? Now, I'm going to take it one step further in this truck and show you, hey, if I jump up 2 levels and go to the RTL-E, which has that in-bed audio system, how much, what am I gaining? So throw that up on the screen, and then what additional amount am I spending? So I want you to understand that additionally too. Now, I want to come back to the truck bed and just talk dimensions, right? So I want you to understand what the dimensions are in the cubic space that you have to use in the back of this vehicle. Now, I want you taking a look at that. I want to throw some comparisons up so that you can understand how this truck compares to those other vehicles out there in the market. Now, this one doesn't offer like 3 and 4 different bed sizes, where I know other vehicles do, so it can be a little bit tricky there. The same way this one only offers 1 engine type, so you don't get the ability to go up to a V8. So just be aware, Honda's a little bit more vanilla in this sense, but it does make it a lot easier to understand the trim level differences to where you're not getting convoluted and mixed up to where you can't really price the truck and figure out what's a good deal for yourself. They only offer 4 different versions of this, so it's very easy to understand and look up pricing to understand what's a good deal and what's not. So that is kind of a plus, but it also could be kind of a negative. So you can take that with a grain of salt and decide for yourself. Now that we moved into the second row, we talked about how it flips up, but I want to talk about the leg space back there. So I'm going to throw a comparison up on the screen so you can see how it compares against the other vehicles out there in the market. Now, after we looked at that comparison, we got to come all the way up to the front seat and talk about the comparison there. And I want to talk about leg room up there so you can understand, hey, if you're a bigger dude and you're considering this thinking, man, I don't know if I need to move up to a full size, you know, something like an F-150, a Tundra, something that big. Can I get into something this size? Will I be comfortable? So I want to show you a leg row, room comparison. So if you're looking at maybe a Tacoma, a Ranger, something like that, you can understand where this lives in the market. Now, after all that's said and done, that's most of the comparisons. A couple things. One, if you're overlooking this truck, man, you're missing out because of all the features it offers that for some reason nobody else offers. So I have to assume that Honda owns the rights to that. The things like a dual action tailgate, storage in the back, having the tub down there that you can throw drinks in and drain. Awesome features. And then you got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You've got Honda Sensing in this car. This car offers a lot. It is a definite contender, even though it is a dark horse that not a lot of people talk about. Now, with that said, I hope you will do a couple things for me. One, please like the video, hit that thumbs up. It makes me warm and happy inside. And if for no other reason, maybe you enjoyed the content that I shared, hit the thumbs up for that. Secondarily, leave me a comment. Do you feel like I left something out? Did I accidentally call it a car a couple times? I know I at least got it once in there, right? My apologies, but you can leave a comment about that too if you want. I always like to hear the good and I always like to hear the bad so I can improve as we move along. If you feel like I missed something, please drop it in there and let me know because I want to make sure I'm always covering it on the next go around. And then lastly, please subscribe to the channel. Let me tell you more about Hondas, whether it be the pickup truck, maybe it's the Pilot, maybe it's the Accord, maybe it's the Civic, maybe it's something new that's on the way that you don't know about yet that I might know a little bit about. Let me tell you about Hondas and how they compete with other vehicles out there in the market. Other than that, I don't know if I have a fourth thing, but if I come up with something, I'll throw it on the screen. But other than that, I appreciate you watching and we'll talk to you later, guys!